Hi, I'm Joe from Cobry, and today I'm going to be talking to Finn, the CEO at Tricent. So I thought as we get started, it'd be great to maybe get a bit of an introduction to you and Tricent as well.
Well, Tricent is a pretty new company. It's only 3 years old. It is a spin-off of one of the Google partners in Scandinavia. And it was formed out of an idea coming from one of our major customers in our sister company. And it's all about compliance. It's all about file sharing, external file sharing, and how to mitigate that. I myself is the CEO of the company, one of the founders, and I've been working with Google Workspace, G Suite, Google Apps since 2008, and has also been part of the Google Advisory Board in the early days.
So what is the Tricent Compliance Tool?
The initial service was actually made, as most third-party tools within Workspace are, as a separate admin tool that controls and gives you the domain-wide insights and statistics of how many files are being shared outside the organization, who is sharing, which groups, which OUs are heavy sharers, and also which individual users are sharing and with whom. So that was the beginning of the product, and it has created a set of tools for getting an overview for administrators. But when we started mitigating the pain of getting back these sharings or mitigating the sharings, deleting the sharings, we found that the problem was that the administrative users, they were not really the ones to decide which sharings should be there and which should not be there. So we had to do an interface that involved the end users and notified the end users that, well, you have these sharings, they are considered critical for the organization. Are you sure they should still be there? And also we had to address the problem of former employees being offboarded from the Google tenant might still have a role in the organization. Some data might still be kept in the organization, and thereby also the sharings they did in the time they were with the company. So the Tricent tool is really an administrative part, getting the overview, giving you the possibility of mitigating sharings on a bulk cleanup basis. But it's also a tool that involves the end users in presenting, well, we have these files you should do something about, and then giving the possibility of doing that in a very easy and fluent way.
Would you be able to provide us with an example, perhaps, of the tool in use?
Yeah, and actually I'd like to provide you with 3 different samples of the usage of the tool, because one way of using the tool is, of course, addressing the end user. That means that the end users, perhaps weekly or bi-weekly, receive an email telling them that you have these 10 or 15 files that the company has reviewed and are a bit anxious about, is critical to the company. So will you please have a review of these files? And the end user then has the possibility of clicking the email, getting a simple overlay, seeing the files, and then extend the sharings or withdraw the sharings for the external sharings as it is. But also, if the end users, they don't react to this, and to be very frank, most of the end users don't, then the system will automatically take back the sharings and present the end user with a separate email saying, well, you didn't do anything, so now we have removed these sharings, so now you know, and we have a clean compliance sheet on our side. And that's one of the samples of the usage. The other example is, as the administrative part gets more and more important on this one, is the ability for the administrators to have a full overview of all the sharings in the company and having the insights and the suggestions to mitigate the sharings both going forward in time and going back in time. Going forward means that you can set up policies on OUs, on groups and specific end users. So you can say, for instance, I don't want anything shared outside my organization that is older than 3 months without asking the end user, should this really be shared outside the house? It can also go, as the third example, back in time, meaning that you can have a full overview of all the sharings you've had prior to this date. You can set up some warnings on that, and you can also seek out data. For example, show me all files that are shared outside the house that nobody has touched for 3 months. And then when you have these bulk files pools, you can actually go in and mitigate and say, please remove all of these sharings, or notify the end users that these sharings will be removed if you don't do anything. So it's kind of a day-to-day tool. It's a tool working with policy going forward, and it's also a tool looking backwards and giving the ability to actually clean up some very, very large amounts of data.
So when Tricent's implemented, how much time would an end user spend using it?
That was one of the critical tasks of creating this tool, because nobody wants to have the users heavily involved or spending a lot of their time on neither the security parts of Google Workspace or a compliance task like this one. So what we've done is that it is completely manageable by the administrators how many files should be presented to the users, how often. So it's something you can leverage depending on your organization and even on OUs and groups. And when the end users, they receive the notification, it's a simple click. They see the overview of files and they mitigate them like in less than a minute. And still, if they don't do anything, the system will automatically unshare and give the notification to the end user of what has been unshared.
So would that therefore require a lot of work on the administrator side of things within an organisation?
Of course, we have been careful in how we approach administrators that already have a lot of tasks in managing the end users. So this tool is something that is enabled, and we can get back to the enablement process and the onboarding process of getting the tool. But when you work with the tool on a day-to-day basis, it's not really something you have a lot of touch on as an administrator. When you've set up the tools and the cycles are running with the end users, it's managing itself. Of course, you can also dig into, when it suits you as an administrator, to go in back and have a back look on the historical data and the historical sharings and mitigate that. And we've tried to make that as simple as possible with a suggestion matrix or suggestion workflows that gives you the insights and the possibility of fast enabling some cleanups that seems obvious for the organization. So it's a tool that has a big effect, but a very low consumption of the resources within the organization.
What sort of onboarding process is there to start using the tool?
Well, it is a tool that has been made in close collaboration with Google, and that means that we have a very effective onboarding process where you only have to enable the tool. We don't get any insights on your data. We don't have any access to your data. We don't move or remove any of your data as a customer, meaning that we are only enabled to use the APIs of Google to actually use the meta tagging function of Google Workspace. And then we sort all of the files, and that's called a data ingestion. That data ingestion is being automatically made, which means that the first impression a customer has when they are entering the tool is really the full insights domain-wide on the statistics of file sharing. And then there are some suggestions of how to set up the solution, and it's a small workshop of 1 to 2 hours, and then you have the tool running within your organization. Then we have a very well-described set of guidance for how to use the tool if you want to go back and look at historical data at a later point. So it's like a very, very easy tool to get into the organization and start working with the file sharings and getting the end users involved. And then you can decide on the time you want to put into the administrative controls afterwards.
What do you see for the future with Tricent's collaborations with partners like Cobry?
Well, a good question and very relevant in this dialogue. Well, what we know, having worked with Workspace and Google for many, many years, and actually being founders of one of the first resellers in Scandinavia and also in Europe, what we've seen is that the trust between Workspace using companies and the partner they are using is really, really, really important. And it's also a very specific thing for the Google ecosystem of partners that there's not that many partners out there. It's not like in Microsoft world where you have thousands of partners in each country. It's like there's a few very trusted, well-trusted partners in each region, in each country, that are working very close with the customers. And that's also why we love to work with a partner like Cobry, because you have a very, very solid footprint. You have a very close relation to your customers. You have earned their trust through years of working with them. And that's just the perfect partner for us to work with, because we come with a tool that can match into that trustworthiness of you as a partner. So we're really looking ahead to have some very good customer cases and to work closely with you guys.
Well, there we have it, folks. If you'd like to find out more about how we at Cobry can help you get the best of Tricent, then feel free to contact us or visit our website.